It's talk to each other, look at your notes for a second before I just blather on more. You've heard plenty of my voice. Six through 10. You should have notes on all this. Let's see if you can discover it in your notes. Let's pause, look through your notes, answer these, then unpause. Remember, you're gonna have all four of those graphs shown to you in block format, and they're gonna be scrambled, so they might not be in the same order that you see right here. But we can see, here's perfect competition, right? This is the industry, this is representative firm. Here is monopolistic competition. Notice with a little bit more elastic demand than monopoly that has more inelastic demand. Note the price here a little higher than perfect competition. Notice the price here quite a bit higher than perfect competition. Notice the quantity here. One thing we can do is if we remember that this marginal cost curve for each firm is essentially their supply curve, wherever demand hits it, gives us both our price and our quantity. If we then come over to our monopoly and say, okay, what if all of a sudden this monopoly got broken up into competing firms, thousands of competing firms, then the industry would look like this. Here would be our demand curve. Here would be our supply curve. And this would be all of the marginal cost curves for every one of the firms for competitive. This is the supply curve. This is the demand curve. There would be our price. Notice the monopolist price is much higher. If that was our price, that would be our quantity there. And for our quantity to be much lower. So in answer to that first question, always with perfect competition, you're going to have a lower price and a higher quantity. Hands up. Yeah.
I was going to ask, this the quantity is usually lower, right? For
Monopoly, yeah. If they're profit maximizing according to these theories here.
So I understand why, like I see like the lines and why it means lower, but applying that to like rural world, like a monopoly providing products at a lower quantity, what does that actually mean?
That means that a monopoly isn't necessarily going to produce enough to meet market demand. They're going to produce enough to maximize their profits. And that generally is the case. Although you might have a monopoly that first wants people to get, I don't know, addicted or used to, or feel that that product is differentiated for them in some way. And they might increase their quantity just to penetrate the market. And once they penetrate the market, then go here to the theory of the firm and reduce their quantity just to maximize their profits. Because then they can charge a higher price because they've penetrated the market with whatever product it is. Starlink is one thing in particular. Starlink satellite service that Elon Musk has thrown up. He's been raising the price consistently. He's essentially a monopoly there. He started off at a low price, a great quantity. Now it's kind of hard to get. Well, it's gotten a little better, and the prices keeps going up.
I was just going to say, if you're like a monopoly, you own the market basically on, like, let's just say shoes, right? Like you own all shoes, then couldn't you just keep the quantity the same, like provide it to everybody because everyone needs shoes, but charge more anyways?
Right.
Everyone needs shoes.
Right. Absolutely. You could. And what this whole unit has been is what's called the theory of the firm. And so it is this idea of here's how we can analytically understand why, in general, we see monopolies charging much higher prices and not producing as much quantity as the public needs. Now, are there exceptions? Yes. So you're right to point that out. But in general, this tends to be the case.
I was just gonna ask, do we have to say it's a representative firm, or is that a representative of?
It's a representative firm because remember, in that industry, all the firms have same information, therefore they have the same cost.
So it's representing all.
That one is representing every single firm in that industry, every single firm in that supply curve for that first graph there. What efficiency, what do you see here in the monopoly graph? What efficiency loss do you see?
Weight loss.
Dead weight loss, and so where is it? What, how do you see it there? Yeah, so black triangle right there, and remember what this is. So if this was a supply curve, that was the demand curve, and this was perfect competition, they would produce out to here. But since it's a monopoly, they're producing where marginal revenue meets marginal cost. So they're cutting off that area of both consumer and producer surplus that would have been there had this been perfectly competitive. So, dead weight loss, what does it mean? What does it mean they've lost out on? What two things? Here, so what we're essentially doing with monopoly, rather than producing out to here, we're producing less. And it's cutting off these areas of, yeah, consumer and producer surplus. What are, for monopolistically competitive firms, why do we call it a monopoly? What are they trying to do? Why is it monopolistic? They're trying to do what with their product? I heard the word, yeah, differentiate, right? So the monopoly part of it is they're trying to differentiate the product in the consumer's mind. In other words, have a local monopoly in people's mind, right? That you think that that brand, Vans backpacks, is the shit. And so you are gonna buy that one. You believe that one's, yeah, the shit. I'm just gonna use that as an adjective. Then competitive, so he believes that Vans backpack is the thing. I'll change it up here. And but what does it also mean? Monopolistic, but we have options, so we have choice, right? So I have a different backpack than him. So we have choice, but those backpack makers or anybody in the monopolistically competitive space is trying to differentiate their product, monopolize your mind, but you have choice between different types of backpacks, shoes, cars, etc. Remember, this is where most of us spend our money. Monopoly competitive firms are the most common firm in a capitalist economy. No, because monopolistic, that would be a pure monopoly. And here monopolistic is about differentiating products in your mind, in your consumer's mind. That makes sense, Alex? Okay. In terms of customers' perception of a product, what do companies, companies who are monopolistically competitive in their markets, what do they try to achieve? Well, they try to achieve, and I think I've struck this question from the final, but we'll just say it. They try to differentiate their product. They try to advertise their product to get their consumer to believe that it's a better product. And they do research and development to create new products and add features to their products. So advertising, product development, and differentiation. Yeah, no, this is just trying to copy this without using more paper than I needed. Yeah.
Then for the final, like, are we gonna have basically the same questions, like, it's like pretty similar?
And like I said, last class, you'll likely not get everything here, but you're gonna get portions of what's in this. So you need to know it all, but you won't get every one of these questions. The last question, so monopolistically competitive firms don't achieve allocative or productive efficiency. And so what's lost and what's gained, and how can this be a critique of market capitalism, if I'm gonna paraphrase that? Note that here you see a little triangle right there would be deadweight loss if we were going to compare this to a perfectly competitive firm where that's supply, that's demand. Here we see the price is greater than a marginal cost. Here we see the price is greater than our minimum of ATC. So we're not achieving allocative efficiency. We're not achieving productive efficiency. We're not maximizing our consumer and producer surplus. So we're missing all those efficiencies, but what are we getting as consumers? Choice. And the critique is twofold. One, we spend billions, if not trillions of dollars producing different types of cars and shoes and ice cream. And we could use those resources to house every person in our country, clothe every person, everyone's healthcare can be taken care of. but we choose not to solve those big problems because we really want choice, right? Now, so we waste resources on product differentiation and on different choices, so we can't solve big societal problems, one. Two, the critique on capitalism also is, well, because capitalism doesn't allow us to be our authentic selves, because we're stuck in jobs that are very meaningless or only focused on gains for myself and not others, that we need to find ourselves in our things. And so why do we allow this kind of inefficiency? Because capitalism drains us of our true authentic being, and so we need to find our authentic selves in our things, in our cars, our fashion. Yeah.
It's really interesting that you talk about this because on Facebook break, I went down to see something like Cali.
Right?
And me and my friend, we were in a Bass Pro Shop. It's the first time I've ever been to a Bass Pro Shop. I don't like climbing or fishing.
Sure.
I was talking, and I was like, this is crazy that there's so much stuff. It's so big. There's so much, like, so many hours put into different types of like baits, lures. Like there was like thousands of fish rods and all that, right? I know nothing about this. Obviously, they're different. But my point was like, imagine like if America didn't focus so much on hobbies, not just that, but like games and everything else in general,
Right.
but for something more like housing or like, food, stuff like that, right? And he had the same argument, which is like, yeah, but then we feel horrible, like we need our hobbies,
Right, we need our hobbies to make our lives feel useless. We need this giant store that's using all of these resources
Yeah.
because this system apparently isn't making us happy. And that's borne out in the data. The data shows happiness in our country is not rising, it's decreasing, even as incomes are rising. So I'm not trying to get you guys to all go to the barricades and overthrow the system here, but it's important that as capitalists, we understand that there are legitimate holes in the system because no system is perfect. And I think we see really easily in other people when they're too involved in their cars or their sports team or their music that, wow, that person's identity, back to the question I was asking in the beginning of class to some of you, is really tied up with things. And that's a pretty good critique of capitalism, that they're not any kind of authentic self. They are, I drive a souped up Subaru and I watch the 49ers and I wear a certain cologne. So you don't have to buy all that, but I think it's an interesting critique, and it's just one question. And as a teacher, I feel like I need to teach you the other side. One last thing for your final is this sheet right here. I'll project, and that is on long run average total costs. Now, the good news is on the deficit